Brodes Media.
Incredible. Incredible. Before we talk about that dreadful Game 7, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We talk about Philadelphia sports every single day here at Brodes Media. And also, hit that thumbs up button as well. Every Wednesday, by the way, I do a Hump Day giveaway on my Twitter page at Brodes81. It kind of sucks because the Sixers just blew it, but this week I'm giving away a 76ers playoff Nike t-shirt. Still a nice item. Make sure you enter to win. It's pinned at the top of my profile. All you have to do is retweet the tweet at Brodes81. Get involved and make sure you stay engaged for all the future giveaways as well. All right, Ben Simmons was an issue. We're going to talk about it. Enjoy the show. What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. I really don't know where this is going to take me. There's a bit of me that's surprised because they lost 3 home games in this series. And oh, by the way, the Atlanta Hawks were down DeAndre Hunter, and they also did not have Cam Reddish. They lost some serious pieces heading into this bad boy, and they still finished the job. So I am a little baffled because I still thought that there was more talent on the Sixers side. With that being said, you play 5-on-4 every game in the half-court possessions. That's what playoff basketball is all about. So this should not be stunning. This should not be some scenario where we are so damn stunned to the point where we don't know what to do with ourselves. This was kind of inevitable. This was sort of going to happen when you have a player that is so flawed on one end of the floor. What did Doc Rivers say after the game? Now, he says a lot of boneheaded things, but what he said was the defense wasn't the issue. Our offense could not generate much. I wonder why that is. Take a wild damn guess. You have Seth Curry running around dribble handoffs, and you're begging and praying for that to be enough offense. Also, you're 7'2" man playing on one leg. You're asking him to basically bail your entire team out whenever you don't go to that Seth Curry dribble handoff praying for a 3. Yeah, you know what? Joel Embiid had 8 turnovers. And I think it's fair to mention that he has had a shit ton of turnovers over the last few games. 8 tonight, 8 in the last game, 5 in the one before. That all stems from Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is the major problem here, where if you have a standard point guard where in the late games moments of a Game 7 at home to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals, where you have Shake Milton and George Hill out there in these offensive sets, if you have a real $30 million point guard and you can run actual pick and roll and you can run normal standard sets in an NBA playoff basketball game in a half-court set, you won't have to beg and sit there on your knees and beg Joel Embiid to make every shot happen. Those 8 turnovers, sometimes he does too much, but that wouldn't necessarily be the case if there was a standard normal player who was actually a threat when there is a screen set. Trae Young and this Hawks team, they run a pick and roll majority of the time. They run the same play over and over and over and over again. They run a pick and roll. That's what they do because that's how this game is played. And your team can't do that at all. Ben Simmons passing up that dunk for a Matisse Thybulle foul. Matisse Thybulle ended up getting fouled. Went 1 of 2 from the charity stripe. It's very telling. And then when the Hawks are up 4, after Huerter gets fouled because Matisse Thybulle fouled another 3-point shooter, sends Huerter to the line, who crucified you all game long. It could have been a 3-point game, which would have been a 1-possession game. Instead, it was a 2-possession game, and I'm not telling you that right there was the difference or not, but it's very telling. The passing up of the dunk was probably the most egregious thing I've ever seen out of Ben Simmons. You know, Trae Young shot 5 of 23, and you still lost this basketball game. That's horrendous. Huerter's out there abusing Korkmaz early, and I can't believe that Doc Rivers started Korkmaz, and then some of the bench rotations were just hideous in a Game 7 format. You know, basically, I saw why Doc Rivers fails all the time. What you saw out of him. At one point in this Game 7, he had Ben Simmons and Dwight Howard on the floor at the same time. Please let me know where the offense is being generated there. You had George Hill, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias, Dwight, and Ben. What are we doing with those two guys on the floor? And I'm watching Ben and Dwight basically standing in the same area because they don't know what to do and the dunker spots being filled. What are we doing? Then late in the game, here's Shake Milton in transition just pulling up for three late in the fourth quarter. And also, he's taking it hard to the rim, and unfortunately, it was probably one of the worst takes I've ever seen. Luckily, in that moment, Tobias Harris cleaned up the garbage and had an and one. And I know a lot of fans are pretty upset with Tobias Harris tonight. He went 8 of 24, and he missed a lot of bunnies. There's no denying that. Soft at times around the rim. Had 14 rebounds as well. I don't have the biggest problem in the world with Tobias Harris tonight. Was he great? No. Was he what we needed him to be? No. But this is Tobias Harris to a degree. And, I can't demand him to be much more. Now, this changes a lot when you start talking about the Ben Simmons thing, though, because you can't tell me that. Well, this is Ben Simmons. You need to accept that then. If you're willing to accept what Tobias Harris is, how come you can't accept what Ben Simmons is? Well, if you don't see the difference between those two scenarios, well, then God bless you. Because we have hit an all-time low for Ben Simmons. Doc Rivers was asked if Ben Simmons is a championship-winning point guard, and he said, I don't know how to answer that right now. The answer is no. The answer is no. Now, you overpaid for Tobias. There's no denying it. Now, I think Tobias has another level. I don't think this is what you get out of Tobias every single night, but this is part of the Tobias Harris experience. You're going to live with 8 of 24 some nights. You're going to live with more efficient nights as well. When I look at this game, while Tobias Harris was not the strongest version of himself, that does fall farther on my list. Now, if you want to look bigger picture, you have 3 max contract guys, right? Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons. You can't rely really heavily on 2 of those 3. Is that an issue? Yeah, I think that's an issue. But I also think if Tobias is your third and you actually have a point guard that's your secondary piece that is actually reliable, Tobias being your third is a totally different scenario. Him having to step up into this Robin role, I think puts Tobias in an area that is probably not realistic for your best version of Tobias Harris. If he's your third and you fix the Ben Simmons garbage, well, then I think Tobias is in a totally different spot. It all stems from Ben Simmons. I think the dynamic of this team all really does have that huge downfall and that huge problem. Everything offensively changes. Deeper in the game, while the defense might have been all right because you had Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle out there, then you're really playing 3-on-5. You have 2 guys that really can't play offense, and I know he had some buckets. He took it to the rim, and then he had that dunk, but they also gave up points on the other end as well during that spurt, which was very damaging. But it's not something that has respect. He doesn't have respect out there. The Hawks would easily allow for Matisse Thybulle to take up shots. Hell, there was one point where he was so damn wide open, he let it fly, and he knew the second it left his fingertips that it was off, where he started chasing to try and go grab the offensive rebound. Basically 0.1 second after the ball left his hands. The Hawks would be okay with that any day of the week. How are you supposed to sustain any sort of offensive pressure when you're playing 3-on-5 and 4-on-5 in postseason basketball? Ben Simmons will do whatever he wants in the regular season. Hopefully, I never see him again in a 76ers uniform. It has gotten to that point. But Ben Simmons is the classic standard regular season guy. Playoff basketball is a different type of beast. He could talk about how much he needs to add to his game and what needs to change. I've been seeing jump shot videos for the last 5 seasons, and we're still in the same exact spot, right? I even watched him before the bubble. I watched him sit down, take a drink of water, saying, oh, it's going to happen in the bubble. You're going to see this in the bubble. I mean, Ben, you've been talking about this every single damn offseason. Are you telling me that this is the breaking point? I mean, it is very low. I've never seen stock fall the way that Ben Simmons' stock fell in one playoff series in my entire life. Maybe this is the breaking point, but I'm telling you what, I'm not telling you that this is what I believe is going to happen at all. He's got a lot to prove to pretty much every single damn NBA basketball fan. And when you hear Shaq talk after the game, you hear Kenny, you hear Charles, they can't even fathom what's going on here, right? They can't even process this information. And shame on me, because I knew that this was going to be the downfall of this team. I just thought that they'd be able to get through an Atlanta Hawks team. But it's that damaging. It really is. It's that brutal, where with the better team, you playing 5-on-4 can't even get you past the Atlanta Hawks. And now we have to watch this team play the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals, which is just so damn shocking. Here's Ben Simmons in the fourth quarter throughout this entire series. Game 1, 2 of 2. Game 2, 0 of 0. Game 3, 1 of 1. Games 4 through 7, 0 of 0. He just doesn't take shots in the fourth quarter. The whole hack of Ben was an issue. You're talking about low 30% when it comes to free throw shooting. The hack of Ben was clearly the game-changing point where it changed the entire way that he viewed playing offense and trying to be aggressive. There were a couple moments where he tried to lower the shoulder. He got called for that one offensive foul. I believe that was the start of the second half, early third quarter. He tried to try to play that aggressive style. Then he picked up his fourth personal foul, and it really should have been, did he pick up his third and it should have been his fourth, but they took one away in the first half, and Trae Young ended up getting that technical foul, or maybe it was the fourth that should have been the fifth. Regardless on what it was, Ben got lucky. They took away one of those fouls. You know, at the halfway mark through the game, he had 8 assists. The most fraudulent 8 assists in my life. Ben Simmons gets these assists because he walks up, he hands it to Seth Curry. Seth Curry makes a 3. Like, I'm told this guy's an elite facilitator. In the playoffs, like, you don't have the ability to run up and down the court like it's LA Fitness. And I tried explaining that to everybody during the regular season. All this up and down motion and all this pace game that you see in the regular season, that's not realistic. The Utah Jazz, annihilated, done. See you later. They weren't able to play their style. Rudy Gobert, a player who gets paid $1 bajillion, who has 0 offensive game. And oh, by the way, defensively got shelled as well because they played the spacing game. They spaced everybody out, and he was lost as can be. Didn't know how to go out by the perimeter. A different scenario from the Ben Simmons, but still, it's the same type of mentality where you have a defender who's so one-sided, and he got abused because of his deficiencies, and the Utah Jazz couldn't play the same way. And then it goes back to this whole number 1 seed thing where everyone's so fascinated and fixated on the number 1 seed. You need the killer. You need the killer. Now, obviously, if you look at historically who wins the title, you still need to be the upper echelon of the Eastern or Western Conference when it's all said and done after the regular season. But the whole number 1 seed thing, it's blown out of proportion. What do you need? You need killers. Now, Kawhi Leonard right now, and Paul George stepped the hell up. I'm very surprised by Paul George. They lost game 1, though, and Devin Booker was insane without Chris Paul in game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. But that's what you need. That's what it takes. It's not about the 1 seed and the regular season wins. You need that next level. Sixers don't have that next level. And as much as I love Joel, a product of it is just center position. There's a reason why, as much as we love Jokic and we love Embiid, and it does seem like there's this new sexy trend involved in the NBA, that can't be your number 1 ultimate option because it's way harder to operate that way. It's way harder to generate your offensive looks. I'm watching Kevin Durant, right? And eventually he fell, but the Brooklyn Nets had nobody. Kyrie was hurt. James Harden was whatever the hell he was after that lingering groin injury, and he was never really able to be that impact player that we anticipated. And guys are just standing around. But when I'm watching Kevin Durant and Giannis go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, I'm thinking, I love Joel. But Joel can't do that. And maybe it stems from Ben Simmons, but also the fact that, it's the center position. You can't play the same way as a Dwight Howard. What the hell am I saying? As a Kevin Durant, as other players. It just doesn't work that way. So because of that, you're in such a bad spot, and it's not Joel's fault. I just think it's the nature of the way 2021 basketball is played, where it's so toxic on a body frame of 7'2" to do that. And it's very hard to sustain. And I think the results just kind of tell you that way. And I know Joel's going to get a lot of heat. And there's an element too where my man's on one leg. He's literally on one leg, and we just act as if he needs to be superhuman all the time. He does, unfortunately, because of where this team is. But is it fair? Is it fair to do that? I thought he left everything on the floor for the most part. And, Tobias, while he missed some shots, he left everything out there on the floor. It comes down to Ben Simmons. It really does. Doc Rivers kind of coached a Doc Rivers game where it's clear that he's coaching a game as if there's tomorrow. It's game 7. You got to have your starters rock. I want to see exactly what the starters finished in terms of minutes. There should be no Dwight Howard nonsense. There should be none of this. It really should be starters for basically the whole damn game. But I understand going to your bench at times, obviously. But it was just insane. So, Seth Curry, 31 minutes. He was starting to get abused by Huerter, so eventually they did have to kind of maneuver. And he was in foul trouble, so that changed a lot. And were the refs bad? Yeah, Joel Embiid had that big slam, and Bogdanovich fouled on purpose, wrapped his arms around Joel, put his finger up as if, call the foul on me. They let that go. There was no and one. There were some bogus calls involved. Tyrese Maxey had a turnover. He showed some rookie moments, but he played great defense on Lou Will. He actually baited Lou Will perfectly to take the shot and to attack the rim. He goes vertical perfectly. They still made the call. So there were some issues with the foul calls, but if you look at this game and say, the problem were the refs. No. The Sixers were very poor. This was game 7 on your home floor. You played sloppy. You had 17 turnovers, a lot of them coming in the first half as well. You had 10 turnovers at halftime. You're giving off live ball turnovers. You're allowing the Hawks to score off of them. What type of winning culture, winning basketball is that? It's not at all. Possessions come at a premium in the playoffs. And then tell me game 7, and it's only even more intensified, and you're just turning the rock over way too much. Very inconsistent with that. And yeah, it's brutal. But with the starting 5, Seth Curry only 31, Ben Simmons 36, Embiid played 41, Tobias played 45. But yeah, I think that you saw sometimes just some really crazy second half rotations where Doc Rivers gave you your 10 deep. 10? I would have went 8. If that 8, maybe 8. But Doc Rivers is throwing you 10 here. It's just not shocking to see the results after that goes down. Danny Green was big. Losing Danny Green was extremely large for this team. You lost a lot. You lost a lot of versatility all out there on the floor just from a veteran leadership standpoint. That's no excuse. No excuse by any means, but with Korkmaz being out there early, bricking shots and getting targeted, and Seth Curry got targeted too, and I'll keep it 100. I was one of those guys that says, when you look at Ben Simmons, everyone says, yeah, but he defends. Okay, he can't play offense, and that's an issue. And then you watch Seth Curry light the lamp on fire, just light the world on fire with all these amazing shots, and he can't defend, but he can stay out there. Well, tonight, the defensive side definitely showed his issues, but at the same time, without him scoring some of those buckets and helping out your spacing on the offensive side, you're not even in position at all to begin with that close fight that occurred tonight. And it was a dogfight in terms of a close battle. It was back and forth. It was a sloppy version of that, but it was back and forth. It was, tooth and nail. You're fighting, you're scratching and crawling, but no moment of that game did I feel good about the 76ers. There was no real true time frame where I thought, yes, that feels great. There was one where the Sixers had a bit of momentum and Huerter's dribbling the ball between his back, in between his legs, and he cashes a huge three at the top of the three-point line. And that somewhat killed momentum. I thought that off the bench, Gallinari had a couple shots here and there that were big ones. I can't believe, though, that pretty much Huerter went off and stole a game from you on the road, shooting 10 of 18 from the field. And you let that happen. You let Huerter be the guy to steal one from you. And that should never happen. It's truly unacceptable. And now the Sixers are in a spot where it's franchise changing. It's a franchise changing move, and it all starts with 2-5, who has clearly been a problem. So after game one of the Wizards series, I will not stop stressing this enough. Ben Simmons showed that he was going to do this. No one wanted to hear it, and I was way too hard on Ben Simmons, said everybody, because they won. I don't give a fuck if they win or not. You can still analyze a game properly. I analyzed that game properly. I said, wow, Ben Simmons did some really disturbing things late. He ran away constantly. He wanted no business of the basketball. They won, but that's something that will matter as the playoffs continue and you don't play a garbage team like the Washington Wizards. And now, all of a sudden, it's as clear as day. Well, I saw it day one in the playoffs. I saw it game one of the playoffs, and it fell dramatically with Ben Simmons to a level that really can't even be processed. I think the Ben Simmons experience will be defined easily by that pass to Matisse Thybulle when he was underneath the basket and not a soul in his way. He's that afraid of the rim, and you can't play basketball that way. It's the NBA, my friend. It does not work. What does work is DraftKings Sportsbook. It's not only my favorite sportsbook, but also America's top-rated sportsbook. I love using DraftKings Sportsbook. It is easy to navigate, has plenty of instructions for new bettors, and nearly limitless ways to get in on all the action. My friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know you will too. Listen to this great offer. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Brodes when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits. Bet on any basketball team of your choice to win their next game, and if they do, you will claim $100 in free credits. That's promo code BRODES for a limited time, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Wager paid out. Insight credits. Restrictions apply. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, I want to look around a little bit at some comments after the game. Joel Embiid said this. I'll be honest, I thought the turning point was when, I don't know how to say it, is when we had an open shot and we made one free throw. ... So how about that? Basically, Joel Embiid just called out Ben Simmons. And wow, that's truly telling. That's really telling. Your superstar, we knew that he was extremely frustrated with Ben Simmons over the years, and we've heard him over and over and over again call out Ben and say that he needs to shoot more and this and that. Well, Joel Embiid literally, and I'll say this again, he said, I'll be honest, I thought the turning point was when I don't know how to say it, is when we had an open shot and we made one free throw. So there it is. This is me seeing that for the first time, and wow. I'm not surprised. I mean, it's obvious that you feel that way. Everyone feels that way. This isn't rocket science here, but it's just it's really interesting to see it play out that way. And John Collins is wearing a T-shirt with the picture of him dunking all over Joel Embiid. That's great. That's where our lives are at. Beautiful. All right, let's get to the Anytime Hotline. Let's hear what you had to say after the game.
I'm not surprised at all, really. I kind of knew going into this that shit was going to hit the fan just because Sixers luck, I guess. Oh, also the fact that Ben Simmons is hot dog shit when he steps on the court and needs to get the hell out of the East Coast, not just Philadelphia. I just don't want to have to see him for many, many days. Maybe even years, maybe he'll be playing for Shanghai. Who knows?
Oh, wow. we're going to that level with Ben Simmons. I understand the frustration, and I'm with you. I'm out on it too. I don't know what you're going to get back in return. We were talking Damian Lillard, and it's funny. Now the James Harden thing is so laughable. Think about it. You can never get a player the caliber of James Harden for Ben Simmons, but before this playoff run, you legitimately had an opportunity to land that style of player with that, and we didn't want James Harden. Why? Because he shot the basketball too much? Because James Harden wouldn't what? Facilitate the game enough? My asshole. James Harden, while he's injured right now, so it's really hard to talk about it fully, but a healthy James Harden gives you double-digit assists, and he scores at will from three. He was clearly not healthy and tried everything just to be out there for Kevin Durant, and it wasn't enough, so I'm not going to tell you what we saw out of James Harden was a healthy James Harden and what you would have gotten if James Harden was healthy, because that's not necessarily fair. Good luck thinking you can get anything actually in return for a player like Ben Simmons. You might be able to get a mid-level type of player if you're lucky, but seriously, every franchise now is looking at Ben Simmons laughing. It's hitting the lowest of the low of the low of the lowest of the low of the low possible around the entire league. Nobody cares about the regular season. No one cares. Yeah, but he does this and he does that, and in the open floor, Tell me where the open floor is in playoff basketball. Please, tell me where the open floor is. And I asked this question before the playoffs got going. And it was actually after the playoffs started. It was in the first round, though, when there were still garbage teams on the floor. I said, is this era of basketball, because it's so heavy with shooting from three, is it going to open up that half-court game that we talk about in playoffs? Is it not going to be as possession by possession because everyone is willing to take so many threes? And there were so many bad teams out there that there was still that faster pace in play. And no, the answer is no. The answer is no. It will not be wide open. It will not be that style of play. So these GMs of the league and these people around the league, they see this. They see it with their own two eyes. This is abysmal. Abysmal. Now, there's bad GMs out there who trade for Josh Richardson and give up Seth Curry. So there's problems all around the league in terms of GMs making poor decisions. So I'm not ruling that out, especially when you have Daryl Morey, who's not afraid to pull the trigger and work the phones and try and fleece some teams and work around some things. So I have a gentleman in the front office that I trust can pull some strings and make something unique happen. With that being said, though, it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. And with Doc Rivers, he's been so heavily sold on Ben Simmons. I think he hit his point. I think he cracked as well. And, I was afraid that maybe there was a way Doc Rivers would go up to Daryl Morey and go, I want Ben. I want Ben because of the treasure that he is. But now, I don't think that Doc deserves any sort of say, because shame on you, Doc. You coached a horrendous Game 7. The bigger problem's the roster, for sure, when you're relying on Shake Milton and George Hill in late game situations down the stretch in a playoff Game 7. I mean, that's a bigger problem. But at the same time, I still thought Doc coached horrifically pretty much all series long and got out-coached by the opponent. But at the same time, I'm asking Doc Rivers to push 9,000 correct buttons. That doesn't take him off the hook for the disaster that he was, but at some point when I'm asking him to, don't play Dwight Howard because he sucks. You can't play your primary point guard because he sucks. You got to try and find a way to get offense going when you're very limited in that area. You got to play a 19, 20-year-old Tyrese Maxey because you need help and you need some sort of spark with that side of the ball. I'm asking him to work with a lot of trash. At the same time, I still thought that there was enough to overcome this hump of the Atlanta Hawks. So, there's definitely a fine line of, Doc, you were still a joke. But at the same time, there's plenty of other problems on the floor as well that goes farther than just Doc. But even with this slop, Doc didn't do a good job with the slop, if that makes sense, because it does make sense to me. All right, what's next?
Yeah, let's trade Ben Simmons, maybe get a few picks. Perhaps a veteran point guard or something, and start focusing on Tyrese Maxey. I think he's the future. He's the point guard we need. I think he's only going to get better, and he's already proven himself to be a great player. So let's just focus on him. I think there's a lot of options that Daryl Morey could take. Trading Ben is definitely like the first step, and I think we all know that.
Oh, we do. In terms of getting picks back in return, I'm telling you, I don't think you're going to get some massive deal that's going to make you excited at all. And then if you're talking about, as much as I love Tyrese Maxey, right? If you plug in Tyrese Maxey as your starting point guard and you have Maxey, Curry, well, I don't know what's going to happen with the Danny Green thing because he's going to be a UFA, and then you try and find some way to get a hold of, a new guy, whether that's trading Ben Simmons for someone or whatever the case may be, and Tobias and Joel Embiid. I like Tyrese Maxey, but you take a significant jump in the backwards direction to a degree just in terms of, look, I like Tyrese Maxey, but if we're talking about championship caliber team, starting Tyrese Maxey, you're not a championship caliber team. And then we're taking that step back with the whole, like, you got to wait for Maxey to grow. You got to wait for Maxey to take steps. We have a timeline with Joel. The timeline ain't long. The timeline's not very large here. Every year there's a knee injury. There's this, there's that. He's got to poop before a game. You never know what's going to happen with this man. So with that, you have a situation right now where I don't have time to be waiting for the growth of Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese can play, and he will be able to be a stud in this league, but you take steps backwards in terms of, where this team is if we're going 20-year-old point guard. I think you got to look more in a veteran, legitimate point guard type of role than Tyrese, and have Tyrese be a contributor off the bench who can maybe handle the rock for you in secondary role minutes and be someone who can maybe spark your bench and be that primary ball handler with the second unit type of thing. But maybe there's not enough guys out there. Like, is there even a player available that you can find that you can slide in as a number one true point guard that makes you a contender next year with Joel Embiid, a real contender, not a playoff team that will be a hard fighting team. I'm talking real contender. I don't know. I mean, yeah, sure, Damian Lillard if he wants out of Portland, but I don't know how you get that anymore. So maybe what I'm looking for isn't even a real option. Maybe I'm getting way too ahead of myself, and Tyrese Maxey is more of the legitimate option, and the thought process of getting a game-changing, legitimate primary point guard that puts you in championship caliber windows, maybe that's not even realistic for next season. I would like to think it is, though, with Daryl Morey, but who the hell knows?
Hey, yeah, Brodes. Yeah, I'm convinced. I left a message probably a little while ago, and saying that it's a mental thing with Embiid and Ben Simmons. They can't play over here in Philly, both of them. Like, they're scared, Like, their whole body mannerism is just, like, messed all up. Like, I really study, like, body, like, people body motions and how they body motions is and how they mannerisms is. And their mannerisms is all scary, Like, once it get critical, and B putting his hands on his knees, put his head down, then Simmons is turning out, do not want to shoot the ball at all. He's like totally scared. Like Embiid scared, he losing the ball, fumbling. He did not turn the ball over all year this year. He was passing balls, saying that he learned and he developed, and he went right back to Brett Brown. It's crazy, man.
That made me laugh a little bit with the Brett thing. I do think it's all a correlation, though, and I do agree with you. Joel Embiid was trying to do too much, and he did have some costly turnovers, and he turned the ball over 8 times in 2 straight games, Game 6, Game 7. That's not what you want. But if you have a primary ball handler down the stretch that you can actually rely on and you can play pick and roll, like Joel Embiid's not having the ball in his hands in those moments, and he might in some, but the pressure of that point guard actually being a threat who can go downhill, who can create off the bounce, who can shoot off the dribble. With those 3 options, who can attack, who can pass the ball to Joel Embiid, it changes the dynamic of what the opposing defense can do. There's so many scenarios where they just disregard Ben Simmons. They laugh in his face, and then Joel now has to work with pretty much a team that's making it way tougher on him because Ben Simmons is such a liability that they can laugh and keep Ben in an area where he's just not even useless, or he's not even useful. He's useless. And I think a lot of those turnovers, there's a correlation between the two. Getting a center to a spot on the floor is not the easiest in the world. And Joel Embiid does operate from a certain area. Now, his skill set is very unique to the point where he can, as a 7'2" guy, shoot from behind the arc. And he can somewhat start outside and then work his way in. And he can play inside out and he can play outside in. And he can do a lot. There's no denying that. But in crunch time, it's a different type of beast and it's hard to do everything that Joel Embiid wants to do, especially when you're playing 4-on-5. I'm with you, and I get the frustration with Joel, but before I start making that harsh criticism, I at least need to see what it looks like with a real point guard out there before I talk about that. If it continues to happen, if they get a real point guard and Joel's turning the ball over 9, 10, 8 times in the fourth quarter at age 28, 29, 30 years old down the road, well then absolutely, I could resurface this conversation, but to me, there's a lot of correlation here, and maybe it is the same with a point guard. But I find it hard to believe, considering the guy who's supposed to run your offense and to get your team in the specific sets will actually be able to handle the rock, and that changes how late game possessions normally fly.
He did it. He actually did it. Ben Simmons continues to surprise me. I mean, we all know he's gone this offseason. I feel like it's more of a question on who else is going to go. Because I feel like nobody on this team should be untouchable, and that includes Joel Embiid. I just think, there's something to be said about a big man that gets injured multiple times every season and has, I just don't know if you can run an offense through a big man anymore. Obviously, I don't think you should be looking to trade Embiid, but if someone offers you a crazy package for him, I don't think you should hang up the phone instantly. But really, just Ben Simmons, man. I feel like that's kind of the elephant in the room, but I mean, there's a lot more wrong than just him, but it's really holding you back.
Oh, it's holding you back. That is the number one problem with this franchise. The reaction to Joel Embiid, I think that was too reactionary, what you said, where, no one's untouchable. I think you're just reaction. It's hard to run an offense through a center. You're right. That doesn't happen if Ben Simmons isn't on the team anymore and you have someone that is a legitimate option with the ball in their hand. So, once again, everything changes when that happens. It changes the entire identity of the basketball team. Like Jamal Murray and Jokic. Jokic runs the offense as a center, but he does it in a different way than Joel. But having Jamal Murray out there on the floor, I mean, it's a different dynamic. It really is. And with Ben Simmons not looking at the basket at all. There was another time where they put him on the block a few times, I guess to try and establish some sort of looks that way, generate some offense that way. And he put his shoulder down, did not look at the basket one time, and just dumped it off to, was it George Hill? Was it Seth Curry? I forget exactly who it was, but it was the most awkward thing I've ever seen in my life. The Sixers ended up getting 2, and I remember seeing the reaction of, it worked, but what the fuck was that? Exactly. What the fuck was that? The Joel Embiid comment that was made by the caller, I think it was a little knee-jerk reaction, a little too knee-jerky, with no pun intended. Joel, you're fine with Joel. It's just building the roster around him. And if Ben Simmons is back next year, I think I'm going to be torn into a billion pieces. If they can't find a move for him, if they can't find the right option, if they can't find a trade target or a trade partner for him because of how disturbing he was and he returns, I'll be sick to my stomach. I'm at the point now where I never want to see him on the Sixers again. It's that terrible. It's that egregious, and it will kill my mood for next year. I never want to see Ben Simmons in a Sixers uniform again, because at that point it's the same thing. Oh, wow, all these regular season wins. You can win 50-plus games with Ben Simmons. You can't win playoff games with Ben Simmons, and that's clear as day. Wow. All right. Well, now the season's over. It's weird, it feels odd, and it's strange. we'll continue the Sixers conversation as the NBA playoffs continue, of course, and as we get some more information and hear from the players more and hear from the organization more and things of that nature. So stay tuned. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you next time.